Okay, hello class. So today we would be looking at a simplified diagram of what happens when you touch something with your finger. So we're looking at the sensory ascending pathway. So this is referred to as the posterior dorsal column pathway, so for touch. So the first thing that happens is that receptors will detect the stimuli when you touch something. So the Meissner corpuscles mechanical gates will deform, causing a generator potential. This generator potential will result into a depolarization, causing the voltage gates to open, which is our next step, causing this action potential. So here you touch something, this whole physiological process takes place. Then after that, you have the action potential, which will actually occur at our first order neuron of this process. So it will happen at the axon of the posterior column of the spinal cord. After that action potential has taken place, this will send signals by synapsing onto our second order neuron, which is in the medulla, which is actually part of our brainstem, which is responsible for our life sustaining processes of carrying out our body. Once it happens at the medulla and it's synapse there, we will actually have this excitatory postsynaptic potential occurring, and that will happen by the opening of chemical gates. So there's different gates that are being used in order to perform these physiological steps on our brain. So now that this excitatory postsynaptic potential has occurred between the neuronal junction of the posterior column of the spinal cord, which is our first order neuron, to our second order neuron, which is our medulla. So remember, we learned in the pre and postsynaptic potentials, right? So remember, this is the synaptic cleft in the middle. You have the presynaptic neuron, the postsynaptic neuron. So it's going from, let's say, the posterior column of the spinal cord over here to the medulla here. See, like 1, 2. It's sending from one to the other. Okay? After the excitatory postsynaptic potential occurs, action potential will occur at our second order neuron, the medulla, and then another excitatory postsynaptic potential will occur. You probably know that it will synapse. So this will happen still on the brainstem, in this case the thalamus. Action potential then reaches the thalamus. Eventually, that information will reach our central nervous system component of touching things, and that would be the postcentral gyrus. Here we would be able to localize the touch by using memory and info from other areas of our body, and by using memory we could also recognize what we might have touched. So here, this is the brain, for example, and this will send all the way here to the postcentral gyrus, right over there. However, we will not be aware of this until later on, so once it reaches the parietal lobe. So there is a whole physiological step and process that occurs just for touching something. That is how complicated human physiology can be. But keep in mind, the main things that happens here is that what you have a receptor, you detect it, and eventually through various physiological processes, that information will be integrated onto the central nervous system. Either that is through a portion of our brain or the spinal cord, which we would look at, because today we only looked at the information going to the brain, but in the later lectures we're going to look at the ones which the information is sent to our spinal cord. So I hope that gives a overall simplification of what happens when you touch something and what are the physiological outcomes of that. And I hope this diagram can kind of give a simplified explanation of that. And maybe if it's too fast for you, you can pause it and take a look at it. Okay. See you next time.